And what's up, everybody? How's it going? This is the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders, and you're listening to Impact Showdown Radio, coming at you live right now on September 20th, 2012, 1 minute past 10 o'clock. Do thank those of you that is checking out this episode right now live on blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR show and our sister website over at infinityoneproductions.com. Also up on Stitcher. If you don't have that free Stitcher app, make sure you're able to check that out when you can. We got the chat room that is loaded up. It's active right now. Feel free to jump on in there and interact with us during the course of tonight's show, as we're going to be talking about the fallout from TNA Impact Wrestling. You can also feel free to interact with us on Twitter at InfinityOneProd. We're also on Facebook at InfinityOneProductions.com. And we definitely want to get your reactions to tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling when we open up the phone lines in the later part of the show. And when I say fan reactions, this is a special shout-out to those of you that actually watched TNA Impact Wrestling from beginning to end. We don't want to hear, I'm watching Impact Wrestling right now. Looks good. That doesn't count because you don't know what's in store if you haven't watched the entire episode. For those of you that also took the time to maybe not be able to see tonight's episode, but you had read the results, as always, weekly, we provide Impact Wrestling results on our website at Infinity One Productions, and you wish to comment on what you had read based off of the results that we had provided on our site, you can also do that as well. But we definitely want to get that overall takeaway from tonight's episode. Just a little something I thought I'd mention, because we had a little bit of a hiccup, if you will, when we had opened up the phone lines last week, and we were trying to get that whole reaction to TNA's Impact Wrestling. So for that person that might take that as a little bit of a knock, don't really take it personal. Try not to. But anyway, folks, we were on a 70-plus hour break. Good to be back. We saw a pretty solid episode of TNA Wrestling, as tonight was the open fight night edition of Impact Wrestling, where the wrestlers on the roster, they can pretty much call out anybody that they want for a fight, and there is just no way you can back out of it, not unless you want to deal with serious repercussions. Definitely was a good installment of Open Fight Night, although I must admit I was definitely greatly concerned with what I had saw at the very beginning, as if you were paying attention to Twitter, you had heard those tweets that had came out that the one, the only, Big Diesel himself, Mr. Shaquille O'Neal, was in attendance. And if you do not know who Shaquille O'Neal is, God, Google is your best friend right now. All I need to say is Lakers champion, Los Angeles Lakers, that is, champion, Miami Heat champion. Currently, you can see him on TNT calling basketball, giving analysis, all that whole 9-yard stuff. NBA on TNT, love that guy. Shaq Fu was in the house, although we only saw him briefly, and I was loving the way that this was properly executed, because I had great trepidations as I heard that Shaquille O'Neal was at the Impact Zone. I'm saying to myself, no, the last thing we need is a scenario here where Shaquille O'Neal is going to just be dominating throughout the night and creating possibly poor segments. Now, for those of you that think I might be a little bit too critical on Shaquille O'Neal here, I want you to do me a favor. You probably don't know nothing about this movie. Go look it up on Netflix, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the movie wasn't even on Netflix, because that's just how bad this movie was, okay? But entertain the idea, hop on Netflix, look up a Shaquille O'Neal movie by the name of Steel. Now, this movie was playing homage to the Steel character in the DC Comics universe. For those of you that need that quick little rundown for you comic buffs out there, pretty much during that whole reign of Superman, where Superman had ended up being dead at the hands of Doomsday, and we had 4 different Superman imposters that were running around. Well, one guy that had claimed to not be Superman was a guy by the name of Steel, named John Henry Irons, I believe his name was, and basically his background was he was working a high-rise building as a construction worker. He had slipped. He almost fell to his death. Superman saved him, and he said to Superman, "Oh, you saved my life. I owe you so much. I'm in your debt." And Superman said, "Well, make it count." That was pretty much the words that he said to John Henry. And when it looked as if Superman had died, John Henry had took it very personal, and he wanted to pay homage to the Man of Steel because he felt that Metropolis was just now in ruins and that crooks were just having their way. Now that Superman was gone, crime was on the rise, so he made this badass armor, and he had this wicked, long-ass hammer in hand, and he was just going around fighting crime, and he called himself Steel. Sounds pretty awesome when you hear about it, right? Yeah, it does. But when you see the live adaptation of this, and you see Shaquille O'Neal in this, you are just, cringing. You can't wait for the movie to go off. And that's exactly how I was feeling as I was hearing Shaquille O'Neal was going to be at the Impact Zone tonight. I'm saying, oh, God, please don't let this be a bomb. Luckily, Shaquille O'Neal would only pop up for one segment, which was pretty much the very beginning of the show, right before we had saw a recap of what all had transpired on last week's Impact Wrestling, as we see him rub elbows with Hulk Hogan briefly and say to him, "Hey, I saw what Aces and Eights have been doing in recent weeks. I know that they had tried to put their hands on Brooke. That's just wrong." And Hogan's like, "Yeah, brother, that's just wrong, dude." And we see Shaquille O'Neal, he's saying to the Hulkster, "Well, look, I got your back. I'm here if you need me tonight. I'm just right across the street. I'll be more than happy to come over here, throw it down with you. I got your back." And Hogan said, "Really? You got my back?" He's like, "I got your back." And Hulk Hogan, he loved the sound of that. We see Shaquille O'Neal, he's flexing his arms in the camera, letting Aces and Eights know that those guns he got them from the Hulkster. That was pretty much it. That's it for Shaquille O'Neal. Now, I'll be bringing his name back up again in a little while, folks. You can rest assured on that, as I don't quite like the way this all had panned out, but I'll definitely look on the bright side to this more in an in-depth look when we do the overall takeaway of tonight's Impact Wrestling. Meantime, let's go on ahead and let's get you guys caught up on what all you missed in case you were not able to check out tonight's episode. Let's take it up to the very top. As I said, we saw the recap of what all had transpired last week, and in case you missed it, there was just so many different storylines that were going on, and there was definitely somewhat of a continuation of that tonight, as we saw everything that had transpired with Joey Ryan, Al Snow, not to mention Robert Roode, James Storm, with James Storm promising that since tonight was open fight night, he was fixing to call out Robert Roode and have that straight-up fight, not a wrestling match. He wants a straight-up fight with the it factor of professional wrestling. We also saw Austin Aries, Jeff Hardy, Bully Ray. They're all in that little picture right there, with Austin Aries feeling as though he's being overlooked right now because all the hype and praise is on Jeff Hardy, and Jeff Hardy possibly becoming the one to possibly win that championship belt from Aries at Bound for Glory. So many people are sold on this, and we are definitely going to be talking about Jeff Hardy in a more in-depth look on tonight's episode, as we got some Jeff Hardy news for you guys, in case you might have missed it, that really explains why Jeff Hardy is all of a sudden getting this push. We'll definitely get you guys caught up on that when we get ready to talk about the latest in TNA wrestling news. Whole lot of things was just happening last week, including Tara and Miss Tessmacher having a fallout there as Tara revealed her true colors to the Knockouts champion. A lot of stuff that was happening last week as we just go into tonight's episode, which is the Open Fight Night edition, as we kick things off with Kurt Angle, AJ Styles. They come down to the ring, and they recall how last week AJ Styles, he beat Kazarian, it was, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was. He had beat Kazarian, and that had gave the team of Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, the right to take on the team of Daniels and Kazarian for those tag team titles at a to-be-determined date. However, this is where a little bit of a loophole comes into play, because on top of them winning that right, so too did Chavo Guerrero and Super Mex himself, Hernandez, as remember just last week we had saw Chavo defeat Christopher Daniels to give them the right to face the tag team champions as well. So Kurt Angle, he feels there's a little bit of a dilemma going on right here, and to basically squash all that, he says, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to go on ahead. We need to have ourselves a tag match right now and determine who's going to be the true number one contenders to take on the tag team champions. So we do see this tag match to kick things off, and need I remind you, it's another week now of TNA Impact where we really did not get that many matches. And once again, it was just dominated by a lot of backstage skits. That was pretty much what was selling tonight's episode. And if you've been keeping track, like I said, last week was the very same thing. I'll touch up more on that in just a little bit, I promise you folks. But we saw the team of Kurt Angle, AJ Styles take on the team of Chavo Guerrero and Super Mex Hernandez. Definitely a strong way to open up tonight's Impact Wrestling, Open Fight Night edition. Just straight up wrestling this was, and you really, really couldn't go wrong with this. And if you happen to watch this match, I know for a fact you guys were definitely peeping out what all Chavo Guerrero was doing, as for a majority of the contest there, he was throwing it down with AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. And was I the only one that kind of had an eerie vibe as I was watching him throwing it down with Kurt Angle? I mean, just as soon as the two of them locked up, I was just instantly thinking about the brief matches that Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero had, and they were just some phenomenal matches. I mean, you could watch those matches over and over again. Those matches are priceless. You'll never get tired of those. Just little hints of Eddie as I was watching Chavo wrestle Kurt Angle there. I loved how he was handling himself with both guys. I love how he bust out the three amigos there, not just on Angle, but he also did it on AJ Styles. And, I mean, he definitely was making it look really good. Of course, nobody did it as good as Eddie. Let's just get that out the way right now. But still, very great nonetheless. We actually saw Kazarian and Daniels watching this match very closely, not too far, as they were at the top of the stage ramp. And critical point here, it looked as if AJ Styles was about to pick up the victory for his team when he looked as if he was about to apply that Styles Clash. But we saw Kazarian, Daniels, they quickly came down to the ring, and they just proceeded to start attacking AJ Styles, thus, I guess, having the impression that maybe by doing this, they would put themselves in a position where they would not have to face Angle and AJ Styles, and they were just relishing in this. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm seeing this, okay, somebody cue Hulk Hogan, because these guys, they think they just did something good here. On the contrary, they just made things worse. And that was exactly the case, as we saw the TNA general manager, Hulk Hogan, come on down to the ring, and he tells the tag team champions, you put me in a very weird spot here, because now we don't have a clear-cut winner, and by you all's actions, you definitely made it very crystal clear. You just made things a lot easier for me. Bound for Glory, it's going to be a triple threat match for those tag team championships. It's exactly what I had said on the Call That Match special on last week's Impact Showdown Radio at least 2 weeks ago, folks. You definitely want to go back and check out the archives. I am not just saying that. I am on record saying that if they wanted to make things interesting, they should have all three of these teams go for it at Bound for Glory. And I said the reason why, and just to reiterate in a nutshell, I said basically, look, we've seen what Daniels and Kazarian can do when it's just tag team on tag team. Somehow they're always able to pull out that upset, but let's see what happens when the odds are really stacked against them and you have them have to defend their championships against more than one tag team. Then we're talking a real contest here, and that's exactly what we have now. So, Bound for Glory, Kurt Angle teaming up with AJ Styles to take on Chavo Guerrero Hernandez, take on Daniels and Kazarian for those TNA tag team titles. Definitely going to be a very great match right there. Wouldn't be too surprised if it could end up being a match stealer, folks. Moving along now, we get you guys caught up on the rest of what all had happened tonight. As from there, we had saw Backstage Pass. Now, for those of you that have not been checking out Backstage Pass, you definitely want to make sure that when you get that opportunity, you're able to do so. Really great bonus content that you see in between commercials while Impact Wrestling is having a commercial break. So basically, you could be watching it on your TV, you have your laptop open, you are checking out Backstage Pass on YouTube, ImpactWrestlingChat.com, on Twitter, and the action never stops. Really some really cool bonus footage that you'll be able to see. It really takes that wrestling interaction to a whole new other level, I feel. As good example, you could be watching a really great match, they go to commercial, and you're like, oh, but it was getting so good. Well, guess what? You got your laptop open, and you never miss anything because you get to see the continuation of that match while Impact Wrestling's on a commercial break. So really cool. You can't go wrong right there. Best part about it, it's free. Free. Put an exclamation point on it. Yeah, it's free. You can't really beat that, folks. So really cool Backstage Pass. We see JB. He's actually interacting with Daniels and Kazarian, who are just fresh off of the segment there where they're just bickering and not liking the fact that they have to defend their championships against two teams at the pay-per-view. Also, we see JB, he cuts it very short in this first Backstage Pass segment as he has to go introduce the TNA Gutcheck contestant. Now, from there, folks, and this would not be the one time that we would see Hulk Hogan, and if you were peeping this out, you definitely will feel me where I'm coming from. We saw Hulk Hogan. He was definitely getting his camera FaceTime, getting that stock up. I mean, we saw Hulk Hogan, if I'm not mistaken, he made at least 4 to 5 appearances, and I'm saying to myself, this is precious time that could definitely be going towards a bonus match here because there really wasn't that many matches tonight. I believe only 4 total, but we'll go run it down, and I'm pretty sure it was 4 matches. But we see Hulk Hogan. He is on his cell phone, and it turns out he's talking with Joseph Park, and he is saying to Joseph, oh, wow, so you have the evidence. You're looking at it in your hands right now. Of course, this evidence is something that Joseph Park revealed that he was going to have last week, and said that he was going to be bringing it to Hogan tonight as it was going to crack possibly the identities of aces and eights wide open. And we don't hear what Joseph is saying to Hogan over the phone, but Hogan, he's pretty much saying, okay, so you have it with you right now. Okay, great. Joseph, I'm going to do what I got to do to make sure that you bring that information to me promptly, safely. I'm going to have my guys, they're going to come get you. They're going to bring you straight to me. Where you at right now? And he's just getting all that information. So looks like things are really going to get pretty intense right here as Joseph is sitting on some really hot evidence of the aces and eights. From there, we see Samoa Joe in a video package who shares his Bound for Glory moment where he talks about jumping off of that skybox in that match he had against Sting. Talk about suicide right there. Definitely was a pretty awesome moment right there. Definitely YouTube that if you haven't seen that match. It was definitely a pretty solid contest right there. Video package of our TNA contestant, Evan. I'm having a hard time pronouncing his last name. It's a little tricky here, so forgive me if I might be fumbling here, but it looks like he pronounces his last name Markolopoulos. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If not, it happens. But we see a video package of him. As from there, the next backstage pass, guess who it is that's dominating on here? It's none other than Daniels and Kazarian. These guys have hijacked backstage pass, and they were just all over the place. It was probably one of the best segments of the night, although there was one other. But this was definitely right up there, as it was really fun and very interactive seeing these two guys just lay it down very briefly there. As from there, we see a backstage segment now where we see TNA President Dixie Carter. She is talking with TNA Gutcheck and also Vice President of Talent Relations Bruce Pritchard about the aces and eights and what all can be done to them. As soon we see Al Snow come into the picture. Now keep in mind, cameras did catch up with Al Snow, who had spoke very brief on the situation with Joey Ryan, as the question was brought up whether or not he feared there was going to be some type of repercussions that might be taken against him for assaulting Joey Ryan, who does not officially have a TNA contract. He is basically just considered a civilian at this point. And Al Snow, he's saying that he is not really sure what to make of everything that's been happening with Joey Ryan, but that it's something that he's going to be talking about with TNA upper management very shortly. But he will also talk about the new TNA Gutcheck contestant that's going to be doing his thing tonight, Evan Markolopoulos, who is 18 years old, folks. He's been wrestling since the age of 13, so he has 5 years under his belt. Now, you're hearing this, and the first thing you're saying to yourself, okay, is this kid a joke, or is this the real deal? And I must admit, I'm saying to myself, when I first heard the video package, I'm saying to myself, man, okay, he's been wrestling for 5 years, 13, 18. Okay, I'm willing to give this kid the benefit of the doubt, because that says to me, if you've been really doing it, you've been really passionate about it, you've been honing your craft, you've been really doing the damn thing, you definitely should be at a certain point right now. And we would actually see him have his match against none other than Doug Williams. Now, one of the things that I loved about this kid, Evan, was I love how in the opening seconds of this contest, he was able to get the fans on his side. It was something I have not seen many TNA Gutcheck contestants do. And just to make sure that I'm on point, I will definitely take this weekend and I will refresh my memory with all of the TNA Gutcheck contestants and check out the reception that they got in the opening seconds. But I'm pretty damn sure, so sure I can definitely put some money on it, that none of them really gave a contestant the type of reaction like this kid got. I mean, this kid just had the fans in his favor. It was definitely unanimous. They were letting their voices speak. And this is something that not even Joey Ryan had when he had his first TNA Gutcheck match. So I'm looking at this. I'm saying to myself, okay, these fans are definitely behind him. This is a good sign. Now, the little bit of in-ring work that we saw from him, it was decent. Don't get me wrong. He definitely looked like he knew some pretty basic moves. He definitely was working the ring fairly well. Eventually, and as always, we see that the TNA talent gets the victory. So Doug Williams, he was able to pick up a victory over Evan. You know, it's one of those type of scenarios. I said it a while back. I will continue to say it. I need to see them break this mold a little bit. It would be nice if they shook things up and just every now and then they let a TNA Gutcheck contestant win a match. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that contestant will be winning a contract, because you could win your match, but the judges could still not really be feeling you. So I would kind of like to see something like that happen. Maybe this is a case right now where TNA, they are probably aware that that trend is out there, and they're probably trying to figure out a good way to break that mold. Maybe they are waiting on the right type of wrestler. I'm not sure. But definitely it was a good effort from Evan. I definitely like him. And it's so funny because I was actually interacting with everybody on Twitter at Infinity One Pride. Very rare I hop on there on a Thursday night and I'm just interacting with TNA wrestling fans, but I felt like interacting with you guys earlier tonight, and mad shout out to all of you that did interact with me on Twitter there. I sat up and I said, you know, the kid does deserve a contract, and I know it had met a little bit of negative feedback, and there's only but so much you can say in 125, 50 freaking characters. But my whole argument was, you know what, this kid is 18 years old. He can easily be molded. There is plenty of time to really invest into him. That's an investment, okay? Over the long haul, it will pay off in big dividends if done correctly. So I'm looking at this kid. Yes, is he still wet behind the ears? There's no doubt about it, okay? But we're talking about somebody young, somebody hungry, somebody that you can take, somebody that you can mold, somebody that you could possibly build a brand around. I'm not looking at this kid as a TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I'm not looking at this kid as an X Division champion. I'm not looking at this kid as an X Division champion. I'm not looking at this kid as any type of a title holder. I'm looking at this kid for what he is worth. And what he is worth right now is he has 5 years of experience under his belt that did show, and he definitely has a long way to go before he can be at that point where I'm getting the vibe that he needs to be. Now, whether or not TNA is willing to make that type of a commitment is a different story, because you're talking a few years here. This kid, he might not be ready for 5, 6, maybe 7 years. He'll still be a young man, but he might not be ready until then. So this should be definitely interesting. I'm very curious to see how the Gutcheck judges are going to go. You know, if it was me and if I was one of the judges, I would definitely give him a contract because, like I said, it's an investment. And the best analogy I can use in a nutshell, you come across a really badass Ric Flair figurine that you know is not made anymore, and it's becoming more harder and harder to find in stores, to find online. You're able to find it. You can get it for a really good deal, or maybe you got it from a friend, who knows, but you have it in mint condition, and you're saying to yourself, okay, it's not really worth that much right now, but if I sit on it for just a little bit, I'll definitely be able to make some serious money off of it. So you're kind of making a long-term commitment there. And in the end, it pays off big time. That's exactly how I'm looking at this Evan kid if done properly. So very curious to see how the judging is going to be going on next week. But that's how I would cast my vote for this kid. Moving right along now, we saw in a backstage pass, Jeremy Borash is talking with Doug Williams, fresh off of the victory from Evan, and he gives his thoughts on the kid, and he had a few nice things to say to him. As from there, folks, we move on to the Cowboy, James Storm, who comes down to the ring, and he sends out a very heated personal message to the it factor of professional wrestling, Mr. Robert Roode, as basically he calls him out, letting him know that the two of them, they're going to be fighting. It's not going to be a damn wrestling match. He is just basically looking to put a stopping and a hurting on Roode. As we all know, Storm is still heated from Roode interfering in that Bound for Glory quarterfinals match where James Storm was just one win away from earning that coveted spot at that pay-per-view to take on the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Well, we see Robert Roode. He comes out, but get this, he is dressed in street clothes, his civilian clothes here, business suit, all of that, and he is definitely not looking like he is coming down there for a fight, as he tells James Storm that as long as he's around, James Storm will never, ever get an opportunity to become the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and he would also go a step further and say that James Storm will never be able to duplicate the same success that he has had in his career. Just really doing an awesome job putting down James Storm. As from there, he tells him, as far as I'm concerned, Storm, you and me, we're done. We're not even having a match. You and me, we're done. I got nothing else to do with you. We see him, first time now that we see somebody that gets called out on open fight night. They do not accept, and you're saying to yourself, what the heck is going on here? Okay, we just saw Hogan come out on Daniels and Kazarian. Surely Hogan is going to have something to say to Robert Roode, right? Well, you're damn right, because we actually see Hulk Hogan bump into Robert Roode and say to him, where exactly are you going? Roode, he feels like he doesn't need to have this match. He's done. Hulk Hogan, he pulls that card. You know that card that Hogan likes to pull there, where he's trying to have it be his way. He throws a little blackmail out there at you. And here's what Hogan basically said to Robert Roode. He said, you know what? Fine. Don't have this match. You will be on a extended vacation. You will be not getting paychecks. You won't have any more matches. You will not have any more title shot matches. No more opportunities. You're done. And we see Robert Roode, he has a bit of hesitation right there. And Hogan tells him, you know what? You have 3 minutes to think about it. Think it over. And the beautiful part about all this, immediately you go to Backstage Pass, and you're just counting down with JB as we see James Storm. He is actually having beer moments with fans in attendance as he's just popping open beers, he's drinking with them, and he's grabbing a microphone, and he is just talking mad trash about Robert Roode for those whole 3 minutes. And then finally, we come back, Impact Wrestling comes back on, we see Robert Roode, he's being very reluctant. He comes on down. He's slowly trying to take off his clothes and get in the ring. James Storm, he's not having it. And, folks, if there was ever a true moment where you want to talk about a brawl, this was definitely the match for you, because at least 95% of these two guys getting it on. It damn sure was not a wrestling match. It definitely lived up to that. This was a straight-up brawl. These two guys, they were just fighting all around the Impact Arena. The few times they were in the ring, it would only last for a mere handful of seconds as the fight would just make its way back out, and these two guys, they were just going back and forth. Definitely was one of the best brawls I've seen in a long time. I like the way this was properly executed by TNA. I really can't think of two better guys right now than Robert Roode and James Storm to really be able to sell that, as they just have so much history going on there that just traces all the way back to their days in beer money. I mean, it was just phenomenal right here. Of course, we did not get a victor in this contest. Now, we saw referee Brian Hebner. It was not Earl, it was Brian Hebner. We see him, he's in this, and he's trying to get these guys to cool off, but they are just really paying him no mind. They're actually being very physical with him. They're just pushing him to the side, and pretty much Brian Hebner, he had just about enough of too many pushes as he finally just called for the bell. That was it. This match would end in a no contest, but these two guys, they did not care. They just continued to take their brawl all the way to the backstage area, where unfortunately that's where it ended for us. It would have been really nice to see them follow this up and maybe see them duking it out in the parking lot and fighting on top of cars, all that. Why this hasn't happened yet, I don't know. It seems like it's something that really isn't quite that popular, or maybe fond of TNA, to really have it be a real all-out brawl and really take it outside there. But it was still a very good contest nonetheless. I definitely was enjoying this right here. Moving right along from there, folks, next up we had got to see in our next segment, we saw a backstage area where Hulk Hogan is talking to a crew member, and he's giving him instructions on basically finding Joseph Park, because he feels something weird has happened to him, as he should have arrived in the arena by now. Well, Hulk Hogan, he receives a phone call. We all know who it is. It's the damn Aces and Eights, as they proceed to tell Hogan that they actually got a hold of a lawyer to represent them themselves, just sending a very strong hint to Hulk Hogan that they have Joseph Park. So we hear Hulk Hogan. He tells them, okay, look, you want to play? Okay, we'll play, but I'm going to play harder. I'll get back to you. Let me know your demands, whatever. So we see that end, and you're saying to yourself, oh, just when we were coming so close here to finding out who those damn Aces and Aces were, we got another monkey wrench that was just thrown in there. Definitely was a solid moment right here. Now, backstage pass, we saw Jeremy Borash. He's talking with Evan once again, and Evan was just coming off really nice. I really like this kid's demeanor, very polite, very respectful, definitely somebody who I'm looking at and I'm hearing all these great things. I'm like, yeah, he definitely needs to get a shot at a contract right here. Definitely ripe for the picking, I always say. Open Fight Night continues now as we see Austin Aries cross paths with Jeff Hardy, as he tells him, hey, you know what, Bound for Glory, everybody wants to look at this, Jeff, as your opportunity, your chance to be able to finally come full circle with overcoming your demons, adversity, and just living on top of the mountain once again. And Austin Aries would talk about how it's not about Jeff Hardy, that this is about him, that he is the hunter, and it's Jeff that is the one that's being hunted, as Aries feels that he has a lot to prove, because he feels that despite having that championship belt, it's Jeff Hardy that doesn't even have a belt and has those fans, the women, the men, the little kids, just all into him, and they follow him like sheep. And Austin Aries was talking about that's pretty much what he wants. He wants to capture that same type of energy from Jeff Hardy, and he figures what better way to do that than to be able to beat him, continue being the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And he would also jump out there and say to Jeff Hardy, hey, anything you can do, I can do better. Strong words right there, as this would not be the last we would see of Austin Aries. As remember, it's Open Fight Night. From there, folks, we see the beautiful, the lovely Tara pushing a very delicious licorice black leather attire. Looked licorice to me. It looked yummy. That's all I got to say. I love her shape. You know, hey, you can't deny Tara's got a nice little thing going on. I didn't know she had so much junk in the trunk, man. That's a lot of shape right there, but I'm getting sidetracked. Point is, Tara, she comes down to the ring. She actually cuts a very solid promo on the fans because she's pretty much gone heel now, and it was definitely a great promo as she pretty much tells the fans that it's because of them that Tessmacher was able to become the Knockouts champion. She would talk about how she felt that the fans used her to get through Tessmacher, and she would also jump out there and blame Brooke Hogan as well. And she would point out how if it wasn't for her Hollywood boyfriend who lives out in California to help her see the light, that she would have never realized just the type of person Miss Tessmacher really is, as she feels that's why she had attacked Tessmacher and sending a very powerful message to her. Well, it gets even better, folks, because we see something that had not happened in a very long time here. As we saw Tara, she points out how it's open fight night and how she can pretty much call anybody she wants down to the ring. Well, get this, folks. Of all the people she calls out, it is not the TNA Knockouts champion that she calls out. No. The person that she calls out would be none other than TNA ring announcer, Hemi Power herself, Christy Hemme. That's right. She bullies Christy Hemme into coming into the ring, as she's heard all the recent trash that she's been talking in recent weeks, putting over Tessmacher, gets her in the ring, tells her to her face, tell me now who you think is the best knockout around here. And she just kept bullying it out of Christy. And Christy's like, hey, come on now, I am not a wrestler anymore. And Tara's like, I know that. I'm not stupid. Come on, tell me, who's the best knockout? And eventually Christy Hemme would say, well, right now it's Tessmacher. And it looks as if Tara is about to get physical on Christy. But then we see the Knockouts champion, Miss Tessmacher, come on down to the rescue. And we just see Tara just literally haul ass after that. Was I the only one that was looking at this particular segment? And I'm picking up three things. Number one, I hear Tara say respect. And then I'm paying attention to this whole segment, and I'm saying to myself, my God, they're taking a page out of the WWE's book because this is the female version. And I did not even overanalyze this. As soon as this segment happened, within milliseconds, it was in my head. I said, wow, they are pulling a CM Punk John Cena angle, because now we have Miss Tessmacher being the female version of John Cena, and we have Tara coming off like CM Punk talking about respect. And I like how we had a ring announcer involved in this, as we had the lovely Christy, who is basically the Jerry Lawler here. Definitely was kind of a bizarro, weird moment right here. I definitely loved how it was executed. And I'm saying to myself, okay, this is definitely a very smart move. And just like I said a couple of weeks ago, for folks, if you want to have Tessmacher hold on to that Knockouts title, this definitely was the way to go. And I was definitely picking up the vibe there that TNA, they want Tessmacher to be a long-term champion, but they want her to be able to get over. What better way to help her get over than have her work with some really good, solid heels? So for Tara to, eventually go heel, which is exactly what I said needed to happen. Definitely a very great move on TNA's part. I love how this storyline is continuing to develop right here. Definitely had me into this. I can't wait to see what happens next. Now, for those of you that are kind of saying to yourself, wait a minute, Christy Hemme, she used to wrestle, or, hey, what's the story with Christy Hemme? Christy Hemme, at one point, she actually did used to wrestle. She actually had a long record that went back to her days in the WWE when she had won the Diva Search Contest. I actually remember that one, too, because me and my friends, it was one of those rare times we actually voted for a Diva to win. When we voted for her, the only other time we voted was for Layla, as we felt those two definitely were on to something right there. The rest of the Diva contestants we didn't care about, but those two, we were like, yes, they got longevity. Christy Hemme, she was definitely a very solid performer for the brief time that she was a wrestler. Eventually, we saw her get released from WWE. She went on ahead to TNA. She did pretty good for a couple of years there, but she had one match where her wrestling career pretty much had got sidelined forever, as it was a match. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I believe it was a match that she had against Madison Rayne, Velvet Sky, and the Von Erich chick, as that would be her final match, because it turns out she did some severe damage to her neck or spine, one of those two, or both, and as a result of that, she just basically became a backstage interviewer, and she's been that way ever since. That's been since 2009. A little bit of a backstory for you guys, just in case you really weren't sure what all was happening with Christy Hemme there. So you can imagine how excited some fans were that remember Christy Hemme from, way, way back in the WWE days, and they're saying to themselves, oh, man, it looks like she's going to finally get to throw it down. Maybe she's a little bit better now, because she definitely was a pretty good, solid performer there. So, yeah, I definitely was liking how this was playing out. Definitely was a very strong segment right here. A little bit disappointed that we didn't get any knockout matches, but it's all good, folks. As coming right from that, we had saw in a backstage pass Jeremy Borash talking with Chavo and Hernandez, getting their feedback on what it's like being a tag team, teaming up together, all that good stuff. From there, we pick it right back up as Open Fight Night continued on with an appearance by Brooke Hogan, who just bumps into, I believe it was Tara, and tells her about the actions that she had displayed upon the TNA Knockouts champion and Christy Hemme, letting her know that next week there's going to be some serious repercussions. And Tara tells Brooke, go ahead, bring it. She doesn't care. From there, we see Rob Van Dam. He shares his favorite Bound for Glory moments, but he doesn't really point out particular moments here, as he pretty much says all the Bound for Glory matches, the pay-per-view matches that he's been in, they all have been awesome moments, but he finally narrowed it down to two. One Bound for Glory moment, he would bring up his match that he had with the monster Abyss. The other one that he would bring up would be just last year's Bound for Glory, where he had took on Jerry Lynn. And if you all didn't see that match was definitely on point. I highly recommend you go backtrack and you check that out. It was definitely one of those type of matches. I was looking at it, and I said to myself, okay, Jerry Lynn, that was probably one of your best. Now, just right off into the sunset already. But Jerry Lynn, he's still going. Hey, I'm all fine, but, yeah, my concern is, you're sitting up saying the doctors don't want you to wrestle anymore, blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe you should kind of take that advice. Don't want to see you end up permanently disabled in a wheelchair from the neck down, That's what I care about more. As much as I love seeing some of these guys perform, I care more about their longevity physically than anything else. So, we'll be just fine if they go ahead and they retire already. But definitely a very solid match right there, folks. And moving right along, we see Mike Tenay announce, get this, and it was literally talked about for like 3 seconds. So if you got a phone call or if you went to go take out the trash real quick or something, you definitely missed this because it was one of those, whew, it just went over your head here. Mike Tenay announced that next week the TNA television title will be decided. Now, let's not forget, folks, it was Devon who was the TNA television champion. And as we had reported a couple of weeks back, as we were staying on top of the story, it looked as if Devon, his contract with TNA, it had expired. They were not able to renegotiate a new deal in time. And pretty much Devon parted ways with the company, and we still do not know where Devon may possibly end up. We know he left TNA on good terms. Definitely somewhere down the road he might be able to come back, but in the meantime it looks as if the TNA television title, could it possibly be vacant? Not really sure what to make of this, folks, as they didn't even mention Devon's name. All they said was the TNA television title will be decided. So for you television title fans, you definitely want to make sure you look at Impact Wrestling next week. Definitely, maybe some more questions will be answered about this championship. Maybe they'll go more in detail about Devon. Who knows? But I definitely was looking at this and I'm saying to myself, very interesting. So much for the argument of retiring the television title, right? I know a lot of folks, they were kind of looking at this, what happened with Devon, and they were saying, you know what, TNA, they should just retire the belt. It's not really doing anything. Just retire it. Well, looks like TNA has other plans right now. Very curious to see how this is all going to play out. Of course, we could be given a curveball here, and Devon could show up next week. Anything is possible, folks. You definitely got to be optimistic right here. Anything can happen. Expect the unexpected. And from there, folks, we see Hulk Hogan. He comes on down to the ring to inform Aces and Eights that he's willing to come to their home turf next week, so as long as they let Joseph Park go. Well, the main leader of Aces and Eights, as I like to call him, the bane of the group, he sits up and he tells Hogan, hey, we appreciate that gesture of you willing to come to our home turf next week. We definitely accept that. As far as Joseph Park go, we know that you had instructed him to do a job for you. But Hogan, he got too close to us. We had to take action. As from there, they would point out how much of a busy bee Joseph Park had been, because they took a look at his computer and they gave him props. They said, this guy is good. And one of the henchmen, they had proceeded to destroy that laptop. Of course, we see Joseph Park. He is in some type of a cage-like type of structure. He's on the floor, and he's telling them, that's several weeks of work that I've done so much on, that I've been working on. You might have destroyed that, but I still have it all in my head. It's all in here. And we hear the Aces and Eights head honcho saying, really, it's all in there, huh? Okay, well, we'll definitely need to do something about that. And all we see is this big old silver hammer, and it's looking right at Joseph's head, and Joseph, he's saying, please, no, don't do it. And all of a sudden, boom, we are given the impression that Joseph has been hit over the head with this hammer as Hulk Hogan just looks on quietly. Fans, they look kind of at this segment in shock as well, as you're kind of saying to yourself, what the heck did we just watch here? Now, I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw this segment, because I'm saying to myself, okay, there's really no specified way. There's no really clear-cut way to attack somebody with a hammer and hope that they're still alive. I mean, I don't mean to laugh here, folks, but just feel me on this for a second. Let's just say hypothetically speaking, okay? You walk up to somebody, you hit them over the head with a hammer, and you just go at full strength. there really is no guarantee there that this person is going to be alive, because you could be doing so much damage to their head, they could either die right there on the spot, they could go into some type of shock, they go unconscious, they bleed to death because you crack them upside the head and the blood is, it's basically like just overflowing in the head there, and that's pretty much how they die. I mean, there's so many, I kind of question what had happened with this particular segment right here. I understand the execution, what they were trying to accomplish with this, but I just thought it was a little bit too tacky, because I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, okay, if they did that to Joseph Park, wouldn't this be considered some type of form of, I don't know, manslaughter or something? I don't know that much about law, but I know enough to know that, if this guy is really that severely injured, Hogan should be able to go to law enforcement and be able to have some type of action be taken against these guys, maybe try to see if he can get an arrest warrant put out there for him or something. I'm not sure, but I just looked at this and I just thought it was a little bit poorly executed right here. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about that. So for those of you that are listening right now, you're waiting to come on the air, you definitely want to chime in your thoughts. You're more than welcome to do so. But I just thought that was just a little bit poorly executed right there. And we definitely got to give a shout-out to our good friend Jennifer, who is in the chat room. She definitely did not like the whole idea of the TV championship. She thinks that it should be scrapped. I don't know. I think TNA might have something planned right there. But, again, that whole segment there definitely was poorly executed with Hulk Hogan, Aces and Eights. And at this point, Hulk Hogan has popped up like 5 times. So for y'all keeping track at home, yeah, it was a Hulk Hogan night right here, folks. From there, we see Open Fight Night continue on as we get the plug for the main event at Bound for Glory, which is going to be Jeff Hardy taking on Austin Aries for that TNA World Heavyweight Championship. As from there, Austin Aries comes out to the ring and he pokes fun at that video package of Hardy airing just before he comes out, as he feels that everyone is still continuing to overlook him, and Aries feels that he's not the hunted, but the hunter. And he also points out how anything Hardy can do, he can do better, as he points out how Jeff Hardy defeated Bully Ray not once, but twice, and that he wants to prove that his victory over Bully Ray a couple of months back was not a fluke, as he challenges Bully Ray to come out for a fight. We see Bully Ray, who's in the backstage area. He can't believe what he's just hearing, and he pretty much goes out there, and he is just working it like always. If you were watching this, 2 funny moments here in this piece right before their match. We see Bully Ray. He is walking down, and we see a guy just go out of his way to touch Bully Ray. And Bully Ray, just the beauty of this, he still remained in character. I love this, as he just looked at the guy for 3 seconds, and it was just like instant magic. He tells the guy, if you ever touch me again, I'm going to punch you in the face. And you could just tell that he was being very sincere about that. Now, unfortunately, there's some wrestlers that don't really like having that type of interaction with fans, not unless it's on their terms. Something has already been set up beforehand where they're going to go into the crowd and they're actually going to really be physically interactive with the audience. But this was definitely one of those moments right here where you definitely picked up that Bully Ray did not want to be touched by this guy. And just the brilliant mind of Bully Ray, as just immediately after that he sits up and he says, you know what, that guy must have been an Austin Aries fan. And Austin Aries just jumped on it just like that. I mean, just perfectly here, as he tells Bully Ray, well, no disrespect to you, guy, but if that guy happens to touch you again, I'll actually come on down and I'll punch him in the face myself. So definitely an awkward moment right here with that fan. But it got even a little bit more, as we see Bully Ray. He gets touched again. It's very brief. Now we see Bully Ray. He immediately jerks his head back to see who touched him. And you can rewind this if you have it on your DVR. It looks like it was a kid that is mentally challenged, and he was just looking at Bully Ray. And Bully Ray, I guess once he realized who was touching him, he pretty much threw his hands up and was like, "You're not even worth my time." And then from there, the match was on, and this was it, folks. This was our main event. We saw Austin Aries throwing it down with Bully Ray. Fourth match, folks. Only 4 matches tonight. Can you believe that? I'm so used to hearing from TNA 5, 6, 7 matches. 4 the past couple of weeks. Not really enough wrestling right there. Too much talking, I feel. But definitely a great contest between these two guys. Now, we would actually see Bully Ray pick up the victory, and he did it in a little bit of controversy right here. I believe the referee had came into play a couple of times as he was taking advantage of that, and not to mention he pretty much was able to take advantage of a overly aggressive, definitely cocky Austin Aries, who really kind of came off not really too focused on this match. Now, post-match, we see Bully Ray. He's getting ready to lay a beat down to Austin Aries when Jeff Hardy actually comes out, and he beats down Bully Ray. Talk about, whoa, as we see the number 1 contender coming to the aid of the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Definitely a moment right here where you're kind of looking at yourself and you're saying, okay, this week the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, he doesn't look too strong right now, and we got 3.5 weeks to go until that Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Overall, I liked some of the story developments that were happening here. Definitely want to bring up what had happened there with Austin Aries, Jeff Hardy, Bully Ray. It looks like Bully Ray is still kind of being kept around those 3 guys there. It's definitely starting to play out the way I was saying a few days ago, that they could do this right. We could very well see some type of a triple threat match. If not, then I don't know. I'm not really too sold on a one-on-one contest between Aries and Hardy, but if that's the way that they're going to go, so be it. But I just love how they're still keeping all 3 of these guys together. Seems like whenever that TNA World Heavyweight Championship gets brought up, Bully Ray is not too far behind. I'm definitely liking that. I feel he should definitely be right up there. As you, the TNA fans that were interacting with us, you definitely let your voices be heard. You say, you know what, Bully Ray, he really deserves the spot right now. It should not be Jeff Hardy. We're going to let you guys know the reason why Jeff Hardy has that spot when we come back from commercial, but definitely a lot to look forward to next week, as most likely we're probably going to see Austin Aries come out on next week's Impact. He's probably going to tell Jeff Hardy that he didn't need his damn help taking on Bully Ray or butting his nose in his business. Definitely we'll probably see a little bit of a aggressive Austin Aries come out, as really somebody's going to really kind of need to be the heel going into this, and it's definitely not going to be Jeff Hardy. So Austin Aries will have to, unfortunately, carry that type of workload, but he can definitely pull it off very well. And quite honestly, it kind of is almost a throwback to the Austin Aries that we all came to love last year, as it was that attitude, that persona that made us all just really fall in love with the Austin Aries character, not to mention the badass wrestling that he was just able to do night in and night out. Not to mention we got the other development that's happening with Tara, Tessmacher, their little female version of CM Punk, John Cena, Respect. Definitely a nice angle that's happening right there. Of course, Hulk Hogan, Austin Aries. We got Hulk Hogan supposedly going to be going to Aces and Eights turf next week. That should definitely be a very solid moment right there. You know, the whole thing with Shaquille O'Neal, it seemed like they really did not have enough time to really build upon that. I remember when I was watching the Twitter feeds and the announcement of Shaquille O'Neal had happened probably maybe 30 minutes to an hour before Impact had came on, and I'm saying to myself, damn, that's not really enough time to build up his appearance on the episode. It's going to kind of go under the radar here. And I'm just a little bit curious how many sports shows are going to be talking about this in the morning. Very curious to see if ESPN, ABC, Fox Sports, I'm very curious to see if they're going to pick up this story about Shaquille O'Neal popping up in TNA Wrestling. I wouldn't be surprised if it went over them because it just kind of came off like this really wasn't executed properly. Came off very rushed. It almost came off as if maybe they had just literally found out that Shaquille was in the area and they just wanted to give him a few seconds of TV time. That's really how it kind of came off. But very happy that he wasn't really utilized. However, if it turns out that they have been in some type of conversation with Shaquille O'Neal about making some type of an appearance, and they've been sitting on it for a few days or what have you, then yeah, they definitely should have been able to capitalize more on this great future NBA Hall of Fame player and really been able to sell his appearance, I feel. But overall, definitely a very solid episode of Open Fight Night from TNA. I definitely would have to give this, scale of 1 to 10, I'd definitely give it an 8. It was definitely a very solid episode. Couldn't really go wrong. My only complaints, though, there was just way too much Hulk Hogan. They should have trimmed that down significantly, and there should have been more matches. We didn't really need all those backstage skits that were happening right there. All right, folks, so this is what we're going to do right now. We're going to go on ahead and we're going to take a very brief commercial break, and then when we come right back, give you guys a rundown on what all had happened in latest TNA wrestling-related news. Then we'll go on ahead and we'll open up the phone lines. And, yeah, before we go to a commercial break, we definitely got to give a shout-out to Jake in the chat room right now. He says they made it look like Hogan ran the Orlando PD. I definitely couldn't agree with you more, bro. Definitely was a crazy moment right there. Yeah, we're going to take a brief commercial break. We'll come right back. We'll open up the phone lines just a little bit. We'll give you guys a quick rundown of what all has been going on TNA wrestling news-wise, get you guys set up for the weekend, let you all know what you can expect as it's the return of the RCWR Show Weekend Report edition. You definitely want to stay tuned as we'll give you guys a little taste of what all we're going to be working on for this coming Saturday show. This afternoon, Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern, is definitely going to be some pretty good stuff. So just hang tight. We'll be coming right back in about 3 minutes or less, folks. Do hang tight. You're listening to Impact Showdown Radio, September 20th, 2012, 8 minutes past 11 o'clock. Be coming right back, folks. Hang tight.
Tired of those wrestling websites that give you redirects, spyware, weird pop-ups? How about those misleading headlines? Instead of hitting the keyboard in frustration, why not visit InfinityOneProductions.com? Infinity One is the source for wrestling-related news and so much more without all the hassle. Visit InfinityOneProductions.com. Your keyboard will thank you.
Hey guys, Lee Sanders here with the RCWR Show, and I'd like to take this time out to tell you about 1 or 2 quick apps that I think you should check out when you get a free moment. First app I'd like to recommend to you is the app from Stitcher. Now, Stitcher allows you to be able to play all our episodes of the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown on your portable devices, such as an Android phone, Kindle Fire, iPad, you name it, it'll be able to play it. So definitely highly recommend that you check that out. It's available for free in the App Store. Stitcher, new and smart way to play radio. Also, another cool app that I'd like to recommend to you all is a new app that came out not too long ago from Apple. That's right, Apple has recently come out with a free podcast app. Now, this app is really cool, folks, because after we are done doing our shows, all you have to do is just subscribe to our episodes. And you can do this by downloading this new free podcast app. All you have to do, visit the App Store on your iPhone or iPad and just search podcast. Once the app is downloaded, you can then type in the name of our shows, the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown, and you'll be able to subscribe. It's that easy. So you have 2 cool free apps that you can check out and take all our episodes with you on the go. So get to it already.
All right, and we're back. You're listening to Impact Showdown Radio, coming at you live right now on blogtalkradio.com and over at our sister website at infinityOneProductions.com. You know, we just got to take this brief moment right here to thank you, listeners, for checking out last Thursday's Impact Showdown Radio, as you had quickly made that be one of our most listened and downloaded episodes to have featured Joey Ryan, who had stopped by the show, and we were just all over the place talking all things wrestling, of course talking about the current update status of Jerry the King Lawler, and we were talking about his match that he had with Honky Tonk Man. That's right, WWE legend Honky Tonk Man. Now, unfortunately, Joey did not pick up a victory over the WWE legend, but it was definitely a great match nonetheless. Humbly thank Justin Reno for coming on to the show last Thursday night. It was definitely an honor. And Justin's going to be coming on by on our October 23rd episode of the RCWR show, as we're going to be celebrating our 100th episode. That's right, 100. It's slowly creeping. It's just around the corner. Other guest that's going to be stopping by, hip-hop Christian rapper Scooter. He's going to be stopping by the show. It's going to be a 3-man job, and we're just going to be working the entire show, just really having fun, talking all things wrestling, and just wherever the great conversations take us, we're just going to be letting loose. And it's just our way of celebrating the 100th episode. Of course, we'll be celebrating it with you all, as well as we definitely want for you guys to be a part of it. So definitely make sure that you check that out. And more names will be announced very shortly, as I am working aggressively to try to get a few more people to come on by the show, if not for the whole episode. Definitely a quick shout-out, do a little drive-by or something. Definitely going to be a pretty solid episode. But, yeah, we definitely got to thank you, the listeners, for checking out last week's Impact Showdown Radio. Also, thank you guys for checking out all our episodes this month, as you've quickly made this month be our strongest month yet. Not only did we surpass last month, but just as long as we've been on the air, this month has been very kind to us, and we have to thank you, the listeners, for that. Definitely appreciate the love right there. Programming note, you want to make sure that you check out the RCWR Show Weekend Report. It's going to be coming up this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to cover the very latest in WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor news, entertainment, and more. It's going to be a very solid show, as we're going to be reviewing the new Double Dragon Neo game that was recently released in the Xbox Live and I believe also the PlayStation Network marketplaces. Definitely will give you the final verdict on that game, and we're also going to have a review of the new Resident Evil 6 demo. That's right, yours truly sat up and I played it with a ton of people. And I'm actually going to be continuing to play that probably when I get off of here and going into Friday night. I'll definitely have a in-depth review of that. Also, music-wise, they are calling it one of the best Dave Matthews Band albums that has come out in recent years. Of course, we're talking about that new Dave Matthews Band album that came out titled Away from the World. definitely has been crushing numbers as they've tied the Eagles for number one albums. Straight 6 number one albums. That's the record right now, and they've tied the Eagles for that. I'm definitely going to give you the final verdict on that new Dave Matthews Band album. I'm going to let you know what I honestly think, and you definitely want to hear what I have to say if you're a Dave Matthews Band fan, or if you happen to know somebody that's into the Dave Matthews Band, you definitely want to have them check out the show. I'm going to have an honest review. I've been checking out all their albums since the very beginning, so to say that I have been there since day one when they formed and they put that first album out there, you'll definitely will appreciate the sincere review for that piece. You definitely want to check it out. It's going to be a very solid show. Do join us. It'll come this Saturday, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern, on blogtalkradio.com and over at our sister website at infinityoneproductions.com. So let's talk about what all went down in TNA wrestling news, and there hasn't been too much that's been going on as of late. Now, of course, we got to get some really good news out there for TNA, as they're going to be continuing to air live through the remainder of this year. That's right. Now, it looks as if they are going to be doing this all the way up until, not every week now. Not every week is going to be new episodes. From what I've seen, it looks like they're going to have Thanksgiving Eve off, or Thanksgiving Day off. Looks like they're going to have Christmas off. Let me read to you the dates here. They're going to be live on the following Thursdays. And if you miss all this, don't worry. We'll be posting it on our website over the weekend. September 20th, September 27th, October 4th, October 11th, October 18th, October 25th, November 1st, November 18th, November 29th, December 6th. TNA will be taping Impact on the following dates: November 12th, Tuesday, November 13th, Monday, December 10th, Tuesday, December 11th. So not really too bad, but definitely congratulations to TNA, Dixie Carter. Looks like they're going to be going at it for the rest of this year. Definitely some good news right there. Also in TNA wrestling-related news, controversial and former baseball star Jose Canseco. He recently had expressed his desire to want to be working for TNA Wrestling. Now, this is what he said on his Twitter account. Lord have mercy. At TNA Dixie, still waiting for Bruce Pritchard's phone call. I'm ready. Now, of course, for those of you that are not quite familiar with Jose Canseco, in a nutshell, this is the guy who pretty much wrote that tell-all book called Juiced, Wild Times, Rapid Roids, Smash Hits, and How Baseball Got Big. That's the book where basically he claimed a vast majority of Major League Baseball players, they use steroids, including Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. I mean, I can just remember when all that had hit. It was definitely one of those moments where I was kind of like, as a baseball fan, it was like, of course, I'll go into more detail about that on Saturday, but Jose Canseco, yeah, as that Aerosmith song goes, dream on, brother. It ain't happening. And in other TNA wrestling-related news for you guys, it looks like we're going to be seeing, let me see here, make sure I'm pulling this up right here. Actually, guys, I think that's it. I don't really think, oh, yeah, there's one that slipped my mind. Matt Morgan. So it turns out Matt Morgan has been signed with TNA going back as far as 2 months, and he's been working the fans on the internet ever since, talking about how he's probably going to be jumping ship, going to the WWE, all that good hot stuff. And, you know, it's one of those moments where you're looking at it and you're kind of saying to yourself, man, what the hell is going on here? Now, see, we actually did an article earlier last month, and I sat up and I did this piece on who I felt the aces and eights were. And I mentioned Matt Morgan as an honorable mention. Now, you can go check this article out in the archive section. And I basically had said when I gave him that honorable mention that it would be one of the greatest swerves for wrestling because we have so many fans that just felt that he was going to WWE. Wouldn't it be something if it turns out he's been with TNA all this time, he's just been trying to build up some type of heat? And we actually saw Matt Morgan make a appearance at a TNA house show over the weekend, and luckily a fan had took note of that, and he captured it on his cell phone, and he put it on YouTube and all that, and it was clear as day. Matt Morgan, you're kind of saying to yourself, man, what the heck is going on here? What's going on with Matt Morgan? Well, yeah, he's been having a contract past 2 months, working the crowd. This is why I always say you got to be optimistic here. I mean, really think about it. We got the whole WWE TNA lawsuit that's going on right now. There's just really no way that both companies are going to be sitting up and they're going to be hiring each other's former talent. It's just not going to be happening until this lawsuit finally gets squashed. Now, of course, I want to talk about Jeff Hardy, and it looks like we don't have that much time because the show is going to be wrapping up. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be taking phone calls. I'm going to make up for that, though. We'll just make sure that we do a deluxe edition of the weekend report for you guys on Saturday. So we'll definitely make sure we have a lot more show time just for you guys to call into the show, and you'll be able to talk as long as you want. It's no problem. But I definitely want to talk about this whole Jeff Hardy thing because it was something that definitely had me a little bit rattled when I had heard this. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier tonight, we had some Jeff Hardy news, and probably will be explaining why he is getting this push right now in TNA. Now, 2013, it's really just a couple of months away. TNA, they are very well aware of this, and they have been working very aggressively to do everything they can to try to get Jeff Hardy to re-sign. They realize that Jeff Hardy, he just has that marketability. They realize that they are making a ton of money off of his merchandise, and they want to do everything they can to keep him. They know that if he goes back to the WWE, it's going to definitely make an impact for the company as far as those online shop prices go, the merchandise. It's definitely going to leave a significant impact. He might not be wrestling like that, but you think of the name Jeff Hardy, guys, girls, little kids, they go crazy for him. They love him. They want to buy all his stuff, his toys, his posters, you name it, face paint. They want to buy it. So it's understandable why TNA is trying to do everything they can to secure him. Now, one of the ways that they have been trying to persuade him to re-sign with the organization is, hey, you stay, we'll give you a run with the TNA belt. So this is why we've been seeing all these things happening with Jeff Hardy right now, and it's just one of those stories you kind of think about and you say to yourself, okay, honestly, would this be happening if Jeff Hardy was not in the picture? Then who would be winning the Bound for Glory series right now? Your answer, folks, it would be Bully Ray. So all of you that sit up and say Bully Ray should have been the one to win the Bound for Glory series, you're definitely not going to get any arguments here because literally Jeff Hardy, he really did came out of nowhere. He came out of the clear blue sky. So it's understandable why they're trying to get him to re-sign. As Jeff Hardy, he feels that with all of the recent struggles that he had over the years, as remember, he had his house burned down a couple of years back, and not to mention all the lawsuit problems, not lawsuit problems, but the legal problems that he had there. Remember, it seemed like every single month he had that trial that kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Well, you know, eventually you're going to have to sit up and you're going to have to pay legal fees, all of that. So many are looking at Jeff Hardy strongly, and it's being said now on very good sources that he's strongly considering going back to the WWE. Now, I'm not going to sit up and I'm not going to be like, well, Jeff should do this. I'm not one of those type of people that try to tell somebody what to do. In this case, though, you got to go with your heart, and you got to go with whatever's going to help you sleep good at the end of the day. We know Christian kind of had this same problem a couple of years back when he was with the organization, and eventually he wanted to have there be more financial security for himself and his family. Eventually, he went back to the WWE. Could this be history repeating itself with regards to Jeff Hardy? Who knows? But this is why we've been seeing all this pushing of Jeff Hardy as of late. Is it deserving? Honestly, if you really want to pick my brain, I honestly believe that Bully Ray, everything that he's been doing within the past year and a half, I mean, the man has just been on a great roller coaster. It's been fun watching his character develop this past year and a half. I definitely feel that Bully Ray should have had that spotlight. I think that if Jeff Hardy was going to have a run with the belt, I think that it should not have come as well as the sudden increase in his popularity on programming. I believe it should not have came until it was a little bit later when his contract is going to be up for renewal. But that's just me. Hopefully TNA, everything that they're doing, it will be worth it. But, only time is going to tell. It's really too early to try to even talk about will Jeff Hardy end up going there. And you know what? I think that's actually something you guys can be thinking about until we hear from you guys this Saturday. We'll definitely work on putting a poll up over the weekend. Ask you guys if you think Jeff Hardy should go back to the WWE, and that could be one of the main focal points for Saturday's show. We'll get you all's reactions, see if you all think that Jeff should go back to the company or if he should stay with TNA. Definitely I want to hear what you guys have to say. Of course, you can also tweet us your replies on Twitter at Infinity1Prod. We definitely love hearing from you guys. That's pretty much going to do it, folks. We had a pretty solid episode tonight. I definitely want to take the time out to thank those of you that had jumped into the chat room tonight to interact with us. Special shout-out to the lovely Jennifer. I love TNA Wrestling. We definitely got to show some love to our good friend in there in the chat room, Jack, I believe his name is. Yep, Jake is his name. Matt, shout out to you as well. Sorry for those of you that had called into the show and you wanted to get on the air. We just had so much content. I didn't realize it was going to be this long. If I knew that it was going to be so much content like this, I would have definitely added maybe